Hi, everybody. So Anya's back and life has changed quite a bit for her. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about abundance and we're going to talk about how we accumulate things throughout our life that we can now let go of so that we can allow all that abundance to flow in. So I want to hear about you, Anya, though, because you went through a lot of emotional stuff the last few weeks, and then you were able to overcome your abundance block.
Yeah, it's a big time for me. It's like I've been waiting for this moment for a long time, and I can't take all the kind of like, what's the word? Like, obviously, I know I've done a lot of the work, but it's not me that's necessarily brought in this abundance at that time. It's been kind of gifted, which is beautiful. But it's been. I always say my higher self, she's a bit of a bitch. She always makes me work for it because she makes me go, like, I'll be really calm and I'll be really bored in life, like unstimulated, not satisfied and wanting to do more and be more. And then all of a sudden it'll be like I'm on this definitely roller coaster that I can't get off of. And I just have to hold on and just go with it. And my lessons do seem to come kind of all at one time and in a very intensive way. And that's kind of the way I've always worked for a long time throughout the years. And I am used to it now. And I think that allows me to deal with it differently. But I was a massive control freak, genuine like control freak, not with other people, but with my own life and what happens and how it happens and where it happens, and of course it's a defense mechanism, it's a safety thing, it's to keep myself safe. That's why I did it. But this really forced me to kind of practice what I preach in regards to letting go of control and flowing with the waves and down the river instead of trying to walk up it. And obviously everyone that's watched the previous videos and follows my TikTok will know the situation with the flooding. And but even before that, I had a lady come and check all the house the other day, like an assessment, and she was like, how have you been living like this? Because the house was in a lot of disrepair before that as well. So it kind of brought it home that I'd just become desensitized to it, and I just found a coping mechanism and kind of just got on with it, even though I'd not, because it was severely affecting my mental health living in that environment. As you know, honey, I used to message you a lot about it. The overwhelm that I'd feel living there was just kind of overbearing. So I think now it's like coming out of that fight or flight now, kind of. I'm still in a little bit of it, but and starting to see the process that I've just gone through. Now I'm not actually in the chaotic part of it. I mean, I'm still kind of half there, but to see it from the other side, it's like, wow, that was quite an intensive period of being, relocated out of my home, not having a home with a baby and all my animals, and not knowing what that meant for my future and all my belongings and how I was going to move forward. To then have now like the opportunity to be in an environment where I have choice of where I'm moving forward. And, I have now been able to get another property and being able to get out of that place. So I'm in the process of moving. So it is kind of a really powerful time for me. And that's all down to working through all the blocks, but then being open to receiving, and then the massive generosity of everybody that did donate. Like all of this came through like a perfect little picture, as much as it was absolutely exhausting and terrifying and draining, and years worth of stress. That's what I'm saying, not just this recent flood, like the years worth of stress in this house and trying to get something done while we're pregnant and everything like that. Like it feels like now everything's finally being heard and the abundance is flowing in. Things are finally moving. It's like finally getting the car out of the mud where the tires have just been spinning in the mud for so long. And now the car is free and it can just continue to drive. That's genuinely what I feel like. Like I've finally been able to get free of that dreaded cycle that I was in and just being kept at that level. So yeah, it's been a very, very testing time, but I am quite proud of the way that I did respond to it, and also like the lightheartedness and the calmness in regards to how I responded to it, because it does take a lot to go through that and then still be like laughing and joking and in that vibration. But I just didn't see the point when it had already flooded, everything's already destroyed. What was the point in being angry or upset? I had a few down moments, but the whole point in it was to test me and how I responded to that situation, and to not go into manic panic mode, and to just be open to receiving the lessons, the experience, and the abundance. And when I did that, the situation, the outcome has been absolutely mind-blowing, and I just have the most unbelievable amount of gratitude. Truly.
Well, and you had to go through a period where you had to release your, because you didn't want to receive.
Yeah.
So you had to release that. And then, so hang on one sec, everybody. So you had to go through the process of releasing your block to receiving. And that was not just that, it's female souls in general just went through this massive purge. And just because you're female doesn't mean you have a female soul, but you do.
Yeah.
And you went through an activation and stuff. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so as I mentioned previously a minute ago, so I'm just trying to make sure this microphone doesn't tip and fall. I do apologize, guys. Sorry
That's
about
good.
this. Yeah, so I've been through this, sorry, for a long time over the years. It's been a weird one, as this divine feminine energy. You know, I mean, even the word, I didn't quite comprehend the whole, you know, when everybody even talks about Kundalini awakenings, like I've been through these different activations, but I suppose I didn't really understand a lot of it. It was quite, I feel like the divine feminine and masculine have been attacked and sabotaged so much that it was so hard to actually navigate what my truth was in regards to that, you know, and actually to see what that meant for me. And in my environment and from my childhood and from my experiences and where I lived and blah, 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 I became very masculine in terms of not my appearance, but my energy field. I was very defensive, very closed off, very much, I'll just do it myself. Don't help me. I don't want your help. You know, I was very much hyper independent and very much masculine. Just do it. I'll get it done, you know. And over the years, especially last year, I've been moving out of that and moving into allowing people to help me. Pregnancy really forced that on me, you know, because sometimes you're not able to do things and you have to ask for help. And especially after having the baby, I was very limited in terms of what I could physically do at all. So that was, again, a real testing time for me to have to physically accept help. So that really forced me to kind of sit with that and why I feel so uncomfortable. I mean, just after I'd given birth, I was physically trying to get up and do stuff, even though I was in pain, because I didn't want other people to do it for me. So I had to really sit with why I was doing that and why it was such a problem for me to receive that physical help. So long story short, moving through all of that, I then kind of understood that if I'm that bad on a physical level, imagine what I'm like on an energetic and an emotional level, you know. So I really had to navigate through being more open, being more vulnerable, and knowing that that's not a weakness and it's not a bad thing, because I just used to cringe at the thought of being vulnerable. Like even in a therapy session or a hypnotherapy session, it used to make me cringe. So I'd had to work through that, and I noticed in my relationship things started to get a lot better. I noticed in my family dynamics things started to get a lot better because I wasn't being so cold and so not confrontational, but kind of closed off, you know, and I was more reciprocative, if that's a word, like open, you know, I was more able to feel and receive love and actually tap into my own emotions and be able to express them more. So yeah, it really unveiled a lot of layers. But then the recent divine feminine activations were like a knowing. It was like a knowing. So all these things we've learned over the years and been observed and, you know, fighting for equality and kind of being open then to vulnerability and opening to softening and opening to receiving and blah, blah, blah. It's like I knew all these things, but I'd not actually integrated it to my life fully. So the past few weeks, it was like I was forced to actually accept it as a physical dynamic in my life and kind of sit with them different emotions and different vulnerabilities and actually open myself up to physically integrating that receiving energy on an energetic level. And that's obviously been a massive part of everything changing, and also things being forced out in such a rush, you know, with the universe pushing it all. It had to be done at that time for a reason.
Yeah, it really does. You get to a certain point and your higher self will just basically make it happen. Or the universe, you can say it either way. The universe will do it for all of humanity. It'll be like, Yes, you're going. Yes, you're getting it done. And that'll be the event that we
Mhm.
see. And that's going to be more of an emotional event, which will trigger all the other events. I think that's going to be an event that doesn't have to do with all the distraction things that we've been learning from, like politics and, all of those systems
Yeah.
that are all going to crumble. But I think one of the things that we have not gotten to at this point, which now is going to become easier, is we deserve to have our abundance back.
Yeah.
So it's time to expect it. It's time to feel it in our body. And it's time to know that it's ours.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we need to go as a collective, is to attract it back. And to know
100%.
that nobody else has control over it except for us. Because we've been waiting for someone else to give it to us. Let's stop waiting. Let's just start feeling it in our body now and doing the things that will make you feel better about life in general. And
Yeah.
that doesn't have to do with money necessarily, but make you feel abundant.
100%.
Yeah.
I agree.
So we have to do that now,
Yeah.
like in the
No,
now.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's the small things too,
Mhm.
like even last week when the flooding happened, I was thinking, oh, I might go pop and get some lunch from like a local cafe. And then I thought, well, why don't I just go to the one down the road that's like what, £1 more expensive for stuff, but it has a really nice like environment and it makes you feel like more open and welcoming. There's a lot of really nice smiling people there, like, and everyone's walking the dogs, and it just feels like a more connective environment, but because of like price restrictions or even just routines, sometimes we're just getting to routines of doing things. Sometimes we don't allow ourselves to experience a little bit of finer things, whether it is financial or going on a walk in a different environment that's a lot more what you want to see and what you want to be around and around people that you want to be around. Like, it doesn't have to be massively financial, but it is about not thinking that you don't belong there, because that was a
Mhm.
big thing for me. Like, I did not feel like I belonged, and still struggle with that, I will say, in like, if it's a really kind of posh place or a very much a different environment to what I mean. I'm from an environment that's not posh at all in my hometown, so it's very much an unfamiliar place to me, which is why I get that uncomfortability, because I'm not used to that. It's not my norm. And like, that's when the imposter syndrome kicks in, when we believe that we're not worthy to be there. And just because it's an unfamiliar place doesn't mean that you're not worthy to be there. And 90% of the time, 99% of the time, it's a lot of it's in his head rather than other people thinking we don't belong there. A lot of it's in our head thinking that
Mhm.
we're not the right kind of crowd for that place. But there will be some environments where you might not fit in, and that's absolutely fine. It's about figuring out now, is what things you enjoy and what things you actually like in your soul, rather than just trying to do things because that's what people with money do, or that's what, blah blah blah. It's instead of the social image, it's more about now doing things that you enjoy and finding out what you enjoy more so, and bringing that into your life.
Yeah. So you want to nourish your inner child, ask your higher
Definitely.
self, what should I do today to nourish my inner child?
Mm-hmm.
And then even if you can only afford to get a coffee someplace that's very fancy,
Yeah.
eat lunch, go get a coffee, take a notebook, sit there as long as you can. Do something that makes you like experience something new
Yes.
so that you get out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
But we are massively abundant. All we have to do is raise our frequency to that abundance.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm proposing that we do, is think
Mm-hmm.
about, what frequency do I have to be at to receive my abundance? Because
Mm-hmm.
all of us have lots of money waiting.
Yeah. 100%.
So we all came in got our little numbers and names stamped, and there is a pile of money sitting somewhere for everyone. And it doesn't matter whether you invested in certain currency or not. There's a trust fund, basically, that has been created, and we can say, that's mine.
Yep.
I expect it to be in my possession.
Mm-hmm.
So I think going forward that way, instead of wondering when someone's going to bring it to you,
100%.
is more important, because we are actually manifesting our own life. So why not bring it in? Pull it in.
Of course. That's the point. We have that
Yeah.
power. And I think maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of think sometimes I feel like a lot of some of the narratives have been spun to make people wait and to make people not step into their own power and call back what's theirs. Because if they're waiting for some higher power to release it back to them, then, you know, they're never going to step into their true power of claiming it as their energetic sovereign being. And I'm not, obviously, we're not saying go storm into a bank saying, I want my rightful owed money, because that's probably not going to work for you, unfortunately. Maybe don't try that, you know. But there is definitely energetic things we can do in terms of, like, you know, setting a magnet and calling the magnet of our heart frequency of our abundance back to us, or like a little lasso, you know, the cowboys use, anything like that. We can call in our abundance back to us on an energetic level, and anything we create in the energetic realm, if it's aligned and the right frequency, it creates itself into the physical realm. So we can do it that way as well. And I would say just tried multiple different things, because I knew about this knowledge for years, but I still struggled with being open to receiving. So sometimes we can know information. I did manifestation courses. I knew about law of attraction. I knew about the I am. I know about all the different aspects to abundance and root chakra and sacral chakra blocks, and, you know, the inner child blocks and the poverty consciousness and the ancestral wounds. And I've literally worked through so many layers of this abundance block that there is no one thing I could tell anybody to do. I would just say it's individual to your own circumstances, but reflecting on where you feel trapped or where you felt trapped, where you feel a disconnect, where you feel not worthy, where you feel insecure, there are points where I would look at, because me having imposter syndrome, not feeling deserving, not being open to receiving, all of that is tied down to self-worth, which originated in the inner child and the root chakra and in the ancestral wounds and the poverty consciousness in the area. You know, so a lot of these things just kind of contribute to then making the final product that we're then trying to decode. So we have to pull one puzzle off at a time. We can't just go, right, working on abundance blocks and it's gone. Maybe some people can, they might have less, but the point is, it's about looking at the different layers of your own healing and working on different aspects, and knowing that different layers of your blocks will be released over time. But we are going through a collective release of the divine feminine blocks, so that should really help speed up both feminine and men, both men and women. You know, that should help them both access abundance more easily without as much view that it's so far away.
Yeah. So before I started YouTube, I did this extensive work to get rid of abundance blocks, and dug and dug and dug until money just showed up when I needed it, because I didn't make any money for quite a long time. So there is, you know, and I had left my job. So there is, like, you know, it's within us where it gets blocked. And I used to do this thing called the death of ego. And I would just dig in to the subconscious and the current life of a human being. But I actually just created a program where we're going through the past lives, the current life, and doing the inner child work, and also going through the genetic lines. So all of that stuff is in this subscription, and I'll put it below. But a lot of it, you have to make sure you're doing it.
100%.
So you have to be, because your ego will try and get in the way. So you have to be self-guided. Yes, I'm going to do this every day.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to take my vitamins every day. And yes, I'm going to work on myself every day.
Taking
So
accountability.
that's the crux of this, because you're going to be given the tools to do all those different things, but you have to do them yourself. And you're also going to get a bit of guidance once a quarter. So every 3 months. But I think that's where we're at. We are sovereign, and also things are moving faster. So what took me 6 weeks to do, it may take a person 2 weeks to do now or less. So, basically we're going through all the blocks.
Yeah.
Because I don't want anybody to have anything that holds them back. And I don't want to be held back by anything, to raise my vibration and go into this new world, because everything is already there.
Exactly.
Like, we have layers of beauty waiting for us. We just have to vibrate up to it.
100%.
So
100%.
I'm really excited, honestly, for the future.
Me too.
Because now feels really good to me.
It does. Feels like there's so much more opportunity, but that course sounds really good, or subscription that you're making. It sounds just exactly what I'd have wanted to do when working through this. And the ego can get in the way sometimes, even not by making you think that you're really good, like, because the ego is a lot of the time construed that. Sometimes it's the opposite. Like, sometimes it's by telling you that you have to work really hard to receive money, or that you have to be doing a certain amount of outgoings to receive this. And that was a big one of mine. Like, everyone around me, they are grafters and they work really hard, but that then led on a belief in my mind that that's the only way that you can make abundance, is to work to your bone, and so it was very hard for me to wrap my head around how easy it can be to create abundance.
So
That was a big thing.
that's a trauma. And when you go in and you find that trauma that makes you think, I have to work hard for money, and you bust that loose. So for me, it's all about neutralizing traumas. And a lot of them are not even ours. They come from our genetic line. So they're floating around in the cellular structure of our body. And then we have the ones that came in with our soul, because souls don't actually work through their stuff as well outside of their body, outside of a body. Like, the emotional structure of a human being is very helpful for working through stuff. So then you have the shadows that need to come in, things, traumas that need to be dealt with. They've had lots of deaths, or,
Definitely.
and then you have your own life that you're in the middle of. So there's a lot of factors, and I think we didn't really know about all those factors until now.
100%. I don't think we could handle it. I don't think we were allowed to even have that capacity of it. I mean, imagine when we first started this healing journey, if we'd have been told, all right, if I'd have been told when I started this, it's going to take you this many years to break this block, I'd have told them I'd do one. It wouldn't have been it would have been nice to know that that's how long it'd taken me to do that block. So I think, I'm not gonna lie, I'll just tell you straight, it'd have been not nice. So I'm glad that we don't have the hindsight sometimes, and I'm glad that we have just got to work through it, because obviously I didn't just spend years doing this one thing and one block. Like, it was so many different layers and aspects. And I think you're right, the human experience allows you to fully be triggered more, but so does Earth, and so does other humans, and so does like this daily matrix that we have been living in. It has allowed us to peel back a lot of layers if we've been attuned to actually looking at them, and things can change so much in your perspective. And once you become aware of the limiting blocks and the limiting beliefs that you do have, I laugh so much at the ones I told Brad years ago, that YouTube want a real job when we were about 15. You know, I said, it's not a real job. You can't make money off it. And this was genuinely my belief at 15, 16 years old. I believed that. And little did we know it'd be me that'd end up on YouTube. So
Well, and then
it
you
can go completely
installed that,
backwards.
you installed that belief that has to be like, actually, it can be a great job.
Yeah,
And you
exactly.
get to talk about the things that matter to you.
Exactly. But it's sad because I actually limited his experience at that time. Obviously, it was all divinely planned, but he was bringing it to me, and I was like, nah, that it's not something that you're going to be able to expand from. Because genuinely, that was my perspective, that you have to get like a real job and you have to be earning like a set amount. And that just because of my environment and what I'd been around, that's what I thought. And I was working, I was going to uni full time, working a full-time job, so 38 hours a week. And then I was, doing a lot of caring in the family as well, because I was working as a full-time carer at the time. So I was completely physically burnt out, believing that was the only way, on absolute pennies. I had no finances, I was completely strapped for finances. So it just makes you question like how much of them limiting beliefs actually benefiting you. A lot of it,
Oh,
like you
yeah.
say, is the ego. It's the ego that makes you think that that's just because that's right, and it's not necessarily true. Like when you actually question that, you peel back the layers to why you believed that in the first place. Where did it come from? Everything changes then, because you can have different perspectives, different opportunities become prevalent in your life, different people become accessible, different opportunities, vibrations. Everything can just become more of a accessible world.
Yeah. And as soon as you let go of the belief that was holding you back, the way gets shown to you.
Yeah.
Like, so it just comes in. It's almost
Mm-hmm.
like you just open the floodgates, And that's
Literally.
what's happening now with Ascension. Like, as we let go of all this old programming and limiting beliefs and soul traumas and, genetic stuff, as we let go of that, then our inner child gets to shine, which
Yeah.
is the consciousness that we're trying to ascend. I just learned that recently. Like, it finally
Mm-hmm.
clicked in because I was doing that program,
Yeah.
creating it. And it's like, who wouldn't want to take this beautiful inner child through ascension?
Of
And
course.
also, why are we covering it up with all these cloaks of nastiness, traumas and all this stuff? So as we peel all those layers away, you have this beautiful being that's ready to experience all the fun, all the
Yeah.
beauty. And your inner child is actually a lot more wise than we think it is.
Yep, I've learned that recently. And I've
Mhm.
also learned to articulate, like when this was another thing with the feminine energy and the inner child overlapped. So if I'd gone into my inner child like in a nicer, playful way, joyful way, and then someone around me like judged that or shut that down, I would become like, then my inner teen would come out ready to go psycho on people. So then I'd become really defensive. And it was obviously an insecurity and an embarrassment. And I understand that now, but
Mhm.
it was like a feeling like I couldn't be in that energy. Whereas when this has happened recently, I've actually made a comment, like in a kind of a jokey way, but oh, way to suppress my inner child because you're not connected with yours. And like I said, it was a joke in the way I said it, but the message was clear. Like, I see what you're doing there. I see how you've just tried to
Mhm.
shut me down and my inner child because you're not comfortable with yours. And that was my not so blatantly obvious way of enforcing a boundary there, to say don't do that. Just because you're not comfortable with your own does not mean you get to suppress mine. And that was a big step for me, to do it in a way that wasn't aggressive and wasn't defensive and wasn't feeling insecure. Like, I just comfortably, and like I said, maybe a little bit might have been insecure because I did say it in a joke, but it felt like the right way to deliver it, in terms
I
of,
think it's great.
you know, yeah, it was a good response. And then do you know what? It got the response I intended, because it got an apology. Like, they actually reflected on it and said, oh, I'm really sorry, that's not what I was trying to do. And maybe it wasn't the intention, but it was what actually happened from my perspective. So I think it rose awareness to them patterns and them things that they might do to other people that they might not even notice they're doing. So I think it was a good reflection in the way it was done, because it wasn't a big deal massively, but it raised awareness to the point.
Yeah, it's just like when somebody tells a little boy that boys don't cry.
Yeah, it's
And
not
then
right.
that little boy has to suppress pain and keep it in. And what it does is it creates a wound.
Yep,
So
100%.
there's all these things that have been repeated over and over again that actually are not good for humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And when we speak, we need to start thinking about, well, what does that actually mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
100%.
Um, but I feel like we're really cooking along right now. Um, feminine power, like the feminine has really gotten healed quite a
Yeah,
lot over the
definitely.
last, I don't know, I'd say
2 weeks.
it's close to a month of massive healing for the
Yeah,
feminine group.
I feel that.
And
Definitely more intense the past 2 weeks as well.
yeah, yeah. And the masculine is in the middle of healing their stuff. I don't think they
Mhm.
had as much stuff when it came to, abundance,
Receiving.
but
Mm.
they may have current life trauma or genetic stuff. But as far as the souls go, I feel like most of the souls haven't had as big of an issue with abundance
I
because
agree.
that wasn't the program here
Yeah, I agree.
for men.
I do agree. I think
Yeah,
unless
so it
they've been
wasn't pushed as
exposed,
much.
sorry about that. Yeah, I think unless they've been exposed to poverty consciousness or like that's the thing. I think I have a quite a unique experience because growing up in where I live in West Yorkshire, it is quite a poor area. Let's not put it blunt, it's not the most abundant area. And like a lot of the places where you go, your supermarkets, your local towns, it's very evident that this area is severely deprived. And I feel like men or women coming from in this environment become extremely restricted on finances. Like I know people that earn good money, that have a good savings, but yet still are far more tight with money than I am. And I didn't even have a lot of money, but I will still live. And how, like I said, if I want that experience, a lot of things it's experiences for me. I make sure I experience life. I don't restrict myself from living in terms of obviously can't go mental, but I let myself be free in that way. But I know people that do have abundance and do have a lot of it, but they hold it so close to him and they have such fear about it that will never expand. It will never become something beautiful and blossomed because it's fear managed and controlled. It's not aligned to the heart.
Yeah, and that's the energy.
Mm.
And the energy is shifting quite a bit right now. So we need to like consciously shift it by
Yeah,
feeling it, by attracting it, and peeling away the layers is really important.
I agree.
So, and men are at the point where they're about to kind of be like, oh, holy cow, all this
Mm-hmm.
stuff has been going on. So, as a collective, they're about to awaken to a lot more. And they've been holding back, but there's a lot of male souls and female bodies right now, too.
Yeah, I was thinking about that conversation we had last week, and obviously, if anybody didn't catch it, just check the previous video. We had a big conversation about this last week, and it was really, really interesting. I really enjoyed it, and I had a conversation with
Mhm.
someone else about it after that. And I was thinking about the fact that because of this movement, obviously being attacked and used as a weapon, it's created a lot of like hate and negativity around this whole even conversation. But like you said, there is going to be different dynamics of energy in different souls, and that's going to mean that they're going to have some more feminine, masculine, and feminine males, and more masculine, feminine, and that has just always been a thing because we have more energy in the
Yeah,
oversoul than
yeah.
yeah,
And
and
I
that doesn't
think
mean
the split is like as far as like how many
yeah,
slightly more male oriented souls are, because we all go back and forth. We're never always
mm-hmm.
in one kind of
No,
body. But that's really, there's a lot of male souls and female bodies right now because we had to push
the
to make
ascension,
this awakening happen.
mm-hmm.
And
Which makes sense.
that's how the male works. Like we push, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree with that
Yeah.
because I feel that part in me. I have to tame it down sometimes because I'm a bit. I'm a bit too much of a pusher, but
Yeah.
I
Well, we
definitely think
don't
that
need to, really.
exactly it's
Yeah.
not needed now. But I think that for ascension, you are right, because if we'd have had the masculine energy in the male bodies, we'd have been in full on physical WAR fair. You know, we wouldn't have had this awakening in the way it's gone. I don't believe that, because I believe women had an understanding, and I do personally believe that a lot of them were leading the beginnings of the ascension process on the human level, on the boots on the ground. I'm not saying there wasn't any men. I'm just saying, in my opinion, it was more predominantly women that was doing that. And you know, you could really see their passion and their drive and their determination, but the way it was becoming was not peaceful, but yeah, kind of, it was to create awareness and recognition and to create change, but in a way that was not damaging to
Yeah.
the society that their children lived in and that they lived in, because they understood the consequence of destruction. Whereas I think as a masculine energy, when it gets to that point of rage and anger, there's not too much afterthought for the consequence of that destruction. And I feel like that's why we had to have that directive energy in a feminine body, so that there was more of a balance, so that we had the drive and the fire to do things, but to also do it in a way that created the least amount of detriment to the society.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
I
it
think
wouldn't
so
have been able to
too.
be done the other way, because if it was male
Beautiful.
energy, we'd have just been, it'd have been carnage.
Yeah, I think it would have been a lot different. And I think it was, divinely guided.
I do,
So
I do.
we've had a
And I don't
lot
think
of
that's,
divinely
sorry.
guided stuff.
It is
Yeah.
true, and I don't think it's because the men didn't want to do it. I think it was designed that way on purpose. You know, like they
Mhm.
had their calling and their time, their like mass conscious awakening. It was about 6 months to a year after. It wasn't that long after. You know, there was around all these women that were, but they really then started stepping into their voice and their power. But that was kind of in 2021 when we'd come out a lot of the anger that we were in. So we kind of shifted then into, okay, what do we need to do now? How do we need to rebuild? Rather than we need to rip it all down, you know. And I think
Yep.
I do believe that's why it was done, because we have the perspective. I think it was all designedly orchestrated, who chose what bodies, what souls, what time of awakening, you know, it literally. And you know, I feel like we've tried this many times in Ascension, like we
We
really
have.
have come down here many times to do this, and this is the only time we've ever got this far, and that we've ever
Yeah.
got to a place of ascending in the human body. And like that, sometimes when I think about it like that, you know, when you stop thinking about like television and like the things you're having for tea, and you actually start to think like, we have never got this far, and this is something that is genuinely like such a huge part of our history as a human race, and how we move forward in that, and escaping this prison world that we've been living in for how long. Like, it is a profound time to be alive and experiencing this. And I know sometimes it's exhausting and draining and tiring, but if we actually have retrospect of why we're here and what we're here to do, we have a beautiful role in this journey, and we are truly here to make change beyond recognition. And that is something to be so grateful to be a part of. Like, I
Yeah.
have such deep gratitude for being here at this time. 100%.
Yeah. So
It's
grateful.
beautiful.
And we're both
And
very
you, but
grateful for you guys. So we hope you
yeah.
have a beautiful rest of your day, and hopefully this was a helpful video for you. I thought it was a lot of fun. And check out
Thank
some
you.
of Anya's things that she's doing. I think her Awakening book is a really, really amazing way to be introduced to how everything unfolds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do love that little book. I made it over a pace of my awakening over about a year in 2021, actually. And it's not so much about all spirituality, it's more about different steps into your awakening.
Mhm.
So, mind, body, and soul, you know, there is some spiritual things in there about opening up and connecting in with spirituality in yourself, but it's mainly a lot about connecting in with your body, connecting in with your mind, different ways and tips and techniques that you can do that, and kind of a process towards it. And because obviously I'm out of a different view now, it's my retrospective view, which I felt like I could have really done with going through that. So everything I create it to what I would have wanted. You know, it's the same with my wild pregnancy course that I've created. It's what I would have wanted to receive. And I think that that's how we should work, is create the things that we want to receive in life, you know. But yeah, there's a lot of things on there, and I just want to say, while I was talking about gratitude, I don't feel like I actually raised enough awareness to my gratitude that I do have for each and every single person that shared it, commented on it, sent healing and love, and specifically that sent a donation. Like, I just actually can't explain in human words the shock and the absolute mind-blowing love that I felt from that, to just feel that receiving of love. I mean, it was less than 14 hours and the target was met. I mean, it's just mind-blowing that, you know, I told my mum and she literally swore and dropped her phone. Like, she was so shocked because she had no idea there was even a GoFundMe made, because it was so quick. My best friend made it that night, and then by the next day I rang her and told her, and she was just like, what do you mean? Like, she couldn't comprehend it. So, you know, it's changed the life of not just me, but my little family, in terms of their stress and worry about me, and their, you know, anxieties of me and the baby living in that house. So it's really been life changing, and I just wanted to express how much so sometimes I struggle with being vulnerable and talking about my business and asking for help. But I'm just extremely grateful for the help that I did receive, and for the fact that there's such beautiful people like you guys and Abby and Mark and Madeline and everybody for sharing it. And you know, like, it made a massive difference, and little Kim for a massive donation, you know, like all these different things. But any donation, that's not to discredit anybody else, you know, like everything I'm grateful for. So I'll stop rambling now, but I just wanted to
Well, we were
express
all
my,
very glad to do it. So,
yeah,
and
thank you.
that's, you know, we want to give to each other. So don't be afraid to give to each other if you have extra.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to receive. Okay.
And that can also be like love, not just money.
It
If you've
is
got
like
extra
love.
time,
Yeah.
energy, anything, you know, someone came out to me today, move, and I appreciated it so much, helping me get the stuff ready just to help me with the baby and do that. Such gratitude. Like, it can be anything that we can give, you know. Right, I'll
Yeah.
leave you guys because I'll talk for England. I'll stop talking
Okay.
now.
Love you guys.
Love you guys.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye.